All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening. Well, good night if you're actually calling in from a very far away place. So it's this week we have a very special guest,
Hello.
which is Jorge Martins. And he's going to be joining us, and we're going to talk about several things, but most obviously, of course, we will need to talk about NextStep, which just took place over the last couple of days. So before we go to George, let's get out of the way the habitual people. So I'm Miguel.
I'm Ruben.
I'm Armando. And this
And
George.
George.
And I'm George, of
Yes.
course.
George, please talk a bit about yourself.
I don't know what you want me to tell you.
So what do you do?
What do I do?
Yes.
These days at this hour, I'm done. I'm hearing something here.
It's our
It's
voice.
technical difficulties.
No, okay. So I'm a trainer. I've always taught. Actually, since I finished my university, I started teaching at the university, and now I train in OutSystems. So I'm one of the OutSystems training partners, or I'm part of the OutSystems training partner IT Hub. And we are
competition here.
And we are now doing training remotely because, well, that's what we can do since COVID started.
So are you saying you cannot travel anymore? Like go and,
Visit
No, I'm
cool
concerned
places.
about your health. Okay.
Yeah. But George, before we go into the matters of NextStep, tell us a little bit about how the experience of teaching, because just full disclosure, I worked with George a few years back. We were together in the training team, and a lot of our secret sauce came from being in the classroom, and just hunching over people that were, working in their laptops. How's the experience nowadays?
It's harder because I cannot do that. That's amazing way of knowing what people are doing and how to help them. And now that part I can do only via checking their service studios or their modules via my service studio. So it's a lot less easy. But surprisingly, it's a different experience. It's not a worse experience. It's just different. People are more proactive. They do more. They try more. And so far, if they have issues, they've been asking, and I actually do a one-on-one call with them on the side and try to fix the things. But otherwise, it's hard to adjust, but it's possible. It's been an interesting feedback we've got. Is that this is much better because we actually are more engaged. How? But that's what's been that's my feedback. So it's actually interesting.
Actually, I have a question. I thought that in these kind of online trainings that you would be doing a little bit like, I think it's Khan Academy. Their approach is that the teacher can see the student's computer at any moment in time, so that in order to understand how they are doing or to take doubts. So I thought that what you were using in terms of software would allow you also to do some similar thing. So no.
Well, I would love to, but we're using Zoom for our training, so
not
it's
really
video conferencing. It's not surveillance system.
And out of curiosity, I mean, one of the things that just make sure is it might sound better now because
yes.
Okay. So I'll just move
amazing.
the microphone a little bit better here. So is one of the things that moving people to the classroom allowed us to do is to have a little bit more focus time, and getting them away from, the day-to-day life. Now their day-to-day life is at home a lot of the times, and now you're competing with the day-to-day life. Do you see, you're basically saying that you actually see more focus or more productivity even?
So I don't see that. They give me that feedback. That it's better to do training remotely like this because they manage to keep more focus on the training and do their things at their own pace, etc. Remember when we used to teach with videos? they are replying that now they can do it more at their own pace. It's nicer for them. So it's very strange for me, but it's not one person that's been saying that. It's been several people in different trainings. So I guess since they don't have to go to the office because everyone is working remotely these days, the video chat allows us to focus on me talking while I need to talk, and then they don't need to worry about me and they just do their thing. And if they have issues, they call me. So it's a different perspective these days. We're still trying to understand why exactly and try to work with that to improve the situation. But it's still an ongoing process. We started doing this end of last year, actually, before COVID started, fortunately for us, because by the time we got hit by this, we had everything in place and we
you already ironed out the kinks.
That was very easy.
Yeah, cool. And you yourself, are you still focused in the Asia Pacific time frame? Do it kind of non-locally?
I'm focusing on Asia Pacific, definitely.
Okay.
So what do you do
we
on
have
your free time?
people in Portugal. We have people in Portugal that do the other zones.
Yeah. Armando?
What do you do on your free time when you're not teaching people? Technical difficulties, everybody.
Yeah. Or I think he's thinking what's the most appropriate or politically correct answer.
Besides eating satay and mazesoba.
Because I was following our own podcast, so
that's gonna screw up your mind, man. You never watch yourself. I never.
But I wasn't. I just forgot that I had the tab open, and we started talking with the delay of a few seconds. It was very confusing. So now it's settled. I just closed everything.
So it was a problem. What people don't know is that it complained to me like, "Can you please stop with the echo?" And apparently it was a problem with the interface between the keyboard and the share
in the computer.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question for you was, what do you do on your free time?
On my free time?
Yes, besides eating satay and mazesoba.
So what free time are you talking about?
I don't know. Let's say what would you do, or what would you be doing if you were not here with us?
Oh, I see where you're going. Okay, I would be doing what I did in the lunchtime, which was going to the gym, but that's not something that I do with pleasure. That's something that I force myself to do.
Okay, so you can thank us for giving you a plausible excuse not to go to the gym.
No, because I went earlier.
Oh, okay.
I'm very committed to it, even though I hate it. I'm very committed to it. You know?
You should definitely get a personal trainer.
You should.
Yeah, I should, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually heard
what
that.
Kind of personal trainer are you talking about? Trying to.
No, for the gym, in order to, make you more eager and more motivated to exercise.
Okay, so that sort of personal trainer, I should definitely get one.
Yeah.
Because the one the one that I have doesn't get me motivated to going there. I go there because I pay for it, so I think I really need to make
motivation. It's money flying away from your wallet.
Yeah,
exactly. The best kind of motivation.
Absolutely.
Now, since we already had this small intro and so on, let's get to business. So, next step.
Okay.
Okay.
So apparently it's the 16th one, right? I think Alexandra in the opening said 16. And just so you guys notice, I tried to find what's the oldest NextStep T-shirt I still have that hasn't collapsed, and I found this one from 2013. Okay, so I might be putting it on eBay afterwards. It's probably a collector's item by now. So there you go.
So
it was in the vault.
But you're going to pay people to have your shirt, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Just to be sure.
So it's a reverse sale.
Yeah, it's a reverse sale. So indeed, interesting new prospect, right? This NextStep this year.
Yes, virtual, different, tiring.
And
Difference, yes.
Actually, let's note one thing is we have here Armando he was a speaker in this NextStep, so his experience is quite interesting and we'll definitely want to hear about it. Miguel was essentially on EMEA, and actually George, he was in APAC, I assume, right? Following it. So this means that we have at least here 2 time zones and 2 different experiences that will be definitely good to hear about. So maybe we would like to start.
I think we should start with Armando because he has behind the scenes view, so he can sort of talk us a little bit to the run up to it, namely, setting up the session, so what and so on.
I can
tell us, man.
I can do that. So, well, as you know, a while ago they opened the call for papers. So lots of people submitted. They just add a few slots. I think it was like 16 or something for the tech talks.
16.
And they opened for the tech talks. So lots of people submitted. A few of those were selected, and pretty much the process was, okay, we are going to record this because if given the time zones, it would not be very practical to do it live for Asia Pacific, then for Europe, then for Americas. So everything was recorded. We recorded that beforehand, like approximately, at least my session was recorded approximately 1 month before, kind of. Really, really late in the evening, and took quite a bit of a logistics to try to get good audio, kind of, which wasn't that great, but good lighting, try to see, to don't get any shadows, to try to appear like a regular person. I even trimmed my hair so to look prettier, which I felt, but doesn't matter. Still, it was an interesting experience, especially mine, because according to the people who were doing the behind the scenes, the control of the what plays when, and the production, let's call it the production, apparently I was the only one that had sound issues in pretty much all the 3 sessions. Well, actually the first 2, the third one, everything went smoothly. So it was very exciting. I felt like I was in one of those 24 episodes, okay, with the clock ticking to start. But it was fun. Some engagement. My topic was very, very specific, and hopefully people will enjoy or have enjoyed listening to it. Live Q&A, lots of engagement, questions and comments from people. And now let's see the ratings. But that's pretty much it from a speaker's perspective. You just watch yourself 3 times over the course of a day, and you answer questions at the end. And now it's finished.
Actually, one more thing is, so you're saying that you had quite a bit of engagement in the Q&A. Did you notice any difference between any of the regions, like more engaged or more questions? Or
okay, so I had similar engagement from Europe and Americas. Okay, although the questions were a bit different, but from Asia, I didn't had that many engagement from the audience. But let's see. I left my contacts there, so if people want to follow up with that, I just let them know that to feel free to send me a message.
That was interesting because that was also something that Imelda, when she was here in our podcast, she mentioned that people in Asia are much more reticent, or maybe this is a Portuguese word, they are actually
shy.
much in a way shy in order to come out publicly and ask questions. So I was curious about that.
They don't initiate anything.
Yeah,
that's the main thing. So asking questions means you start to engage with the other person. And on this side of the world, usually you don't do that.
Yeah.
You end up
which is fine, I guess.
reacting
Which is
instead
fine, I
of
guess.
being proactive.
But then again, it could be also due to the topic because it was very specific. It's like a corner case. The feedback that I had from other speakers was that their sessions had more engagement, but their sessions were also more broad topics, not so many corner cases. But yeah, it is what it is.
But I've seen sessions without any engagement from the audience.
Yes, I was going to say that.
I think there was all sorts of things.
Yeah.
It depends on the topic. It depends on the
of
time
course,
of the day.
Of course.
I think,
Depends
by the way,
on the
Miguel is
presenter.
trying to ask a question, but he's muted.
Miguel, you're muted. That's so 2020.
That was the best part our podcast ever had. It was me muted. Okay, so no, but
that reminds me of the keynote, though.
Yes, it's so 2020.
Do we want to jump into the keynote, or do we still want to talk about engagement even outside of the big sessions? I am actually curious. Full disclosure, I didn't jump into any of the kind of hangout, chill out booths, to be honest.
How dare you?
I don't know. No, I mean, we can get to a little bit on the schedule of things and whatnot, but I'm just curious. I mean, for example, yourself, George, you were a sponsor, you had your own booth, and maybe some of you guys hung out on other booths. Well, how was the attendance of other areas that were not glued to a session?
I don't think I have positive things to say there when it comes to the chatting, as in a lot of things were text-based. And those things, for instance, each booth would have their own group chat, and people arrive there and they would say hi and they would eventually engage. If that was the goal, I think. Majority of people that went through our booth, we were one of the premium sponsors or something. They would go there, they would say hi, and then they would vanish. And and the reason they did this is similar to what happens in the live experience of NextStep, where there's some scavenger hunt, there's some prizes or some giveaways, and people go through every single booth just to get those things, and they don't really care about what's on the booth. Yep, same thing, except it's even less engaging because they only need to be there to go to the booth, say hi in the group chat, and they immediately got their badges.
Yeah.
So the majority of people that interacted in the group chat were saying hi. That was it.
So there's no
engagement.
You remove the social pressure of people having to say beyond the hi, right?
Yeah, and because you remove that, you don't start conversations. There were very few conversations starting in our booth, and none during my period. So in APAC, there were no conversations initiated at all. And in the other zones, I wasn't there most of the time, but in the other time zones, there were very few. Okay, so that part I don't think worked too well. Other booths were slightly different. I saw a little bit more engagement in the community booth and the OutSystems booths. Maybe because they were a lot more specific and more common interests to everyone. Where I had some engagement, so we had our own Zoom link there, so that we could have live conversations with people. I don't think anyone ever joined ours, but on the community booth they had it, and there was some engagement.
Yes, that's true.
I was there several times. And there was engagement. There were people chatting, discussing whatever related to OutSystems or not.
Yes.
So that was interesting.
And
I spent a while there.
There were more things like juggling, okay, where people try to showcase their juggling skills. There was also attempt.
Who?
Yeah, I tried to juggle with tennis balls. It wasn't that bad.
Oh, you said people.
Yes.
Sorry.
There were like other Nick. People, not you.
I think it was Nick. Sorry, Nick, if that's not your name. He tried to juggle. He actually did quite well. Okay, so props to him.
Okay.
We also had other things there because I spent most of the time there. We had an attempt of a magic trick. If you have been watching our podcast, you know that somewhere down the road or somewhere before, we had something like, doing
Oh.
something like this.
Oh, so Vera did try a
Yes,
magic trick?
tried, and
You know
she
where
asked,
that started,
no,
right?
it's like she was like, I'm going to do a magic trick, and she picked a volunteer.
It was you.
It was me, obviously.
Surprise.
And she was
Obviously.
like,
You're
Surprise.
so self-centered. You only tell stories about yourself,
no,
man.
it's funny. It's funny.
It all goes down to you.
It was fun. It was going
Yeah.
to. I don't tell
So-
anymore.
How did it go?
For me, it was amazing. For her, it went terrible. Because
There you go.
Okay.
she asked me to
We
pick
need
a
to bring her
card.
back so we can
Yes.
actually see the flip side of this story.
But she asked she asked me to pick a card, and then she laid out in rows and columns. Okay, and she was like, "Oh, tell me what's the row number." But she was expecting me to say from 1 to 4, but she didn't expect me to start from 0 because every computer scientist starts with 0.
Mhm.
So it failed miserably, at least from her
So you
perspective.
basically you broke the system. You
Yes.
broke the system.
I
So
used the
again-
Uno reverse
Again,
card.
it's a problem of communication.
Yes.
It's communication
Okay.
problem. But do you
Yeah,
know
so-
why? Why
Poor
magic
Vera.
thing?
Why?
Because it's funny.
Because in NextStep APAC, the first day ended with a magic show.
I've heard about that
Oh.
story.
Screenshots.
Live Zoom call with the magician and live interaction with the audience.
Oh, that's okay. That's set
And
the
That sounds
precedent.
fun. That sounds fun.
Vera started her shift at 7 a.m. or something, and it was this. She managed to start it while the show was on because APAC ends the day when Europe is starting, and she entered the magic show, and she was immediately noticed by the magician, who specifically mentioned how beautiful she was, and then picked her for
No
one
one
of
says this
the
about me ever.
You want?
yeah.
Wonder
Well, there's
why.
a reason for that,
It's
Miguel.
not just you. It's not just you. Okay, I think we all have that issue. He eventually picked her for one of the numbers, and he had a conversation with her in the end, while Q&A, and realized that she actually likes magic and has a few magic tricks up her sleeve.
All right, that's cool. So speaking
it
of
was
magic,
very nice.
speaking of magic tricks, what were any noteworthy magic tricks? Let's kind of segue into the
main topic?
the keynote. Okay, yeah, into the key.
Okay.
Well, we're still in the main topic, the keynote. Any magic for you guys coming up in the announcements and so on?
The only thing I want to highlight is that the stressed account manager didn't look like stressed at all. So
Yeah.
you need to tell me how do I apply to that neobank?
But we had a conversation with her afterwards, and apparently she only looks stressed when she's not stressed.
Okay.
Okay.
It's reverse psychology. I don't know.
And by the way,
So-
Seizan, who was the scary enterprise architect, she's not scary at all. So
Yeah.
that was a miscast as well.
I think we lost Ruben. He's not moving.
What?
No,
No,
he's-
why?
He's
No,
here.
I'm
he's
No,
here.
here.
you're
I'm
not
here.
moving.
I'm here.
No,
Yes, he is.
Oh,
Yeah.
now he is moving.
and I have the worst internet in the planet, other than Imelda's.
yeah.
Last time, yes.
How? Yes, exactly. Exactly.
But let's pick apart then a little bit what was announced there. Then we can talk a little bit about the format itself and being
Mhm.
pre-recorded.
Okay.
Would you guys want to talk about pre-recorded versus live flavor and then the content, or?
Well, I think there was, well, again, given that they were doing the keynote, for 3 time zones, I think there's no way around doing it recorded. Because when you do it live, either you just have the speech completely memorized, or you have someone helping you. It's going to sound different, which is
Or
not bad.
Or it just takes longer.
Yes. So
Yes, but it's not necessarily bad. For example, the
true.
fact that when you go without reading, and that was one of the comments that I heard, that some of the sessions people were clearly reading. And one of the advantages when you are in a stage live is that you indeed have to know what you're going to say, but nevertheless you ended up saying more or less, meaning it's much more, to me, much more captivating because it's live. And mistakes happen live. I love this kind of things when
Look at us. We're
things
on
happen.
episode whatever of mistake, right?
Yeah. So
no, but I did feel that indeed, for example, in the case of the keynote, someone like Gonçalo is a little bit more relaxed, and Paulo, it was a little bit more stilted, was a little bit more tense, and that kind of brings it down.
Yeah, Gonçalo, he's a natural in every situation, live or non-live. There's no question in that. But I agree with you that the engagement that he created by speaking are different. Maybe the target audience is also different, but
well, I have another perspective on that actually. I thought they were all a little bit stiff, as in we could clearly see that they were all reading, some less than others. So Alexander in the beginning was very, very forward, was very, very natural, and then a little bit less later. And Gonçalo, I think it was the other way around. He started a little bit stiffer and then he relaxed. But one thing that I enjoyed that the recorded version allows better is that it gave opportunity for other people to show.
yes.
It was not just Paulo presenting and eventually having a sidekick and bringing on stage guests. There were several people, each responsible for different parts of the keynote.
Yeah.
Going back to Paulo, of course, but there were several people showcased and showcasing their own little babies. Let's put it this way.
And
so it was that part I enjoyed.
Although I myself prefer the live thing, I have to say that in terms of production, it was very, very good.
I think so, but I did like, for example, what George said. Have more people contributing. I did think that the role playing. Let's park, the acting capabilities of people for a moment. But the role playing ended up taking up some time, and therefore the things that were being discussed weren't as clearly featured as, for example, when in the past, basically Paulo was talking and Gonçalo just alone was Gonçalo Borrega at the time, for the most part, was just demoing it. So I think there was more the subjects, you had more breathing room for people to understand what was going on, because maybe Gonçalo was already doing something in this big screen. So you when you stepped out, one thing that I felt of the announcements is I got to the end with a laundry list of subjects and not really for certainly for the new ones, not really understanding what had been presented.
Yeah, I agree.
I would not actually completely agree, for one reason, which is we are looking all from a perspective of like dinosaurs, looking at it like, of course we know that and this is new, but I want to know more about this. But if you look from a perspective of someone that doesn't know the platform like a prospect or doesn't know that well the platform, it tells you a story on how things could go. Actually quite easy path or good story in the perspective everything goes well, right? Those meetings never happen like that. People, when they are stressed,
definitely.
it's not like 5 minutes. The green being all green.
It's good.
Yeah,
it's a lie. My life
normally
is a lie.
The website is down, so you don't see any colors.
Now you just, for every time you need to throw 404 error, just put the green screen.
Yeah. No, but I understand what you're saying. There was an efficiency that you could never capture in the live setting, and if the objective of a keynote is to have a fun laundry list, you can do it better in a format that's more timed like this one, right?
I would say that what they could have done is maybe putting some immediately pointers like, you want to know more about this session.
That's exactly where I was trying to get at. There were no call-outs to sort of say, okay, and I understand because they need to put the program out in advance. So if they want to announce, say, for example, the AutoML stuff or something like that, they cannot give away that a session with the name of something they're going to announce beforehand. So it's hard for you to already have a closed schedule that's going to go publicly in depth on something you want to wow people in the keynote. So it is a tricky way to break these things down.
One thing that I thought about the keynote, that I actually thought afterwards, not immediately, I think the keynote was really in line with a lot of the content and the target audience of NextStep this year. Because it was not meant for dinosaurs like us. It was meant for a lot of newcomers or people with less experience that needs the gist of it without the intricacies and the complex stuff that we probably would be more excited about, because that's where the fun is. And the keynote highlighted the subjects without being too detailed about it. So gave you an overview. And if you're new to the platform or if you're recent to the platform, amazing. You have lots of information right there. For the other ones, that's, oh, but I've seen this already, so I want the nitty-gritty details, and that's not on the demo. That's not on the keynote at all. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the NextStep was a little bit like that. There were a lot of sessions that seemed to be meant for the new arrivals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You had my first reactive widget, for instance. Okay, that's something that is interesting. I went and checked that session, for instance, and it was interesting. I actually learned something, but at the same time, it was for people that never did anything in reactive or almost nothing in reactive, for instance. Okay, so there were I felt there were a lot of sessions that were a bit like this. More geared towards the not the advanced people, the intermediate to beginner people.
But I would say that also that is natural, because one of the things that was mentioned in the keynote was the growth of OutSystems. And in that perspective, growth of number of customers that they mentioned, that it was 1,400 in terms of number of partners, suppose around 300 now. This means that there is a lot of people every year, more and more coming to the ecosystems, and the level of seniority, clearly, like we are clearly old folks, and the NextStep, many times, or at least how I feel it, there is one or another talk that is interesting, one or another that is actually something new, but typically NextStep for me is about meeting the people physically and talking and actually share experiences.
And then we have a challenge clearly on the online, regardless of however way they would spin it.
That was definitely lacking this year. The networking is something that didn't happen. Not even just between us, as in we meet people that we only meet at NextStep and we catch up, etc. But even engaging with other potential clients, potential partners, etc. That from my perspective, that didn't happen. That part was a miss. Content-wise, I think it was interesting, and I agree with you, Ruben. I think the conference tends to be more for the networking for most people that go there more than once, and for the developers that get there, it's more interesting for the newcomers, or when you have really new things, etc., which is now shifting in terms of how you do it, how OutSystems does it, because they don't have a big announcement anymore. They have smaller announcements throughout the year.
But you have to see, like in the physical event, it goes for 2 days, right? In those 2 days, you can probably fit like you have multiple rooms, Okay, it's not unlikely to have. I think last year at the NextStep Amsterdam, you had like 6 rooms for technical things or something like that. So
Yeah,
if you
something like that.
have 1 hour for each presentation during the day, and starting at 10, ending at 6, we are talking about 8 hours or 7 if you remove a lunch hour times 6. So it's way more than just 16 talks for the whole event. Okay, because if you I think you reach to a point in which having more and more online talks will not bring the value, because they will certainly have the demographics of their developers. So I would say probably the ratio of newcomers to dinosaurs would be probably like 7-3 or 8-2, given the recent growth in developers. So they just try to bet on that. I have no problems. If it was everything for newbies in a physical event, I would probably complain, but that's my specialty. But given the anatomy of the online event, I think it was something that we can let it go.
So,
Yes.
yeah, but I think, I mean, we probably will come back to the sessions themselves later on. I'm still curious how you guys felt about the announcements that were in the keynote. I saw, I'll come right out and say I was a bit underwhelmed. I was underwhelmed. Again, I was like you guys. I was last year there. Like the first half of the announcements were a kind of just the crystallization of things that had been already promised the previous year. And then the second batch was indeed visible, but maybe again, because we're all kind of coders, since they don't, except for one, impact our tool, they did resonate less with me. So am I being just a bitter old man here? Is there still space to make a big thing out of, workflow builder and experience builder? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with you. For me, it was underwhelming, mostly because half the things had already been announced last year's keynote, like those two. There were a few new things. So the integration builder was new, and the ML builder was also new.
Yeah.
Okay, those two were really new things. I might have heard of them before, but definitely it was a crystallization of interesting new things. I have my own personal opinion about those.
Those visual things.
The builders. I find it very interesting. I find them still missing something to be really, really amazingly useful. And the last one more thing was both interesting, and the way it was presented was a disappointment as well. But that's a personal thing, I think. For Service Studio, the big announcement that we now have, or going to have, a new Service Studio with completely built from scratch to be cross-platform and
web design,
etc. So my take from the keynote, and full disclosure, I had seen it before, the Service Studio.
Yeah. Okay.
But so I wasn't so excited about the Service Studio itself, the announcement. I knew about it. Still interesting. What I felt like this is what you really want to focus on was how dark mode was the thing. That's what I took out of that announcement of Service Studio and it comes with dark mode.
But you have a pet
hatred. Interesting.
You have a pet hatred for dark mode, right?
I don't care about dark mode. My Visual Studio Code is in dark mode, for instance, but that's because it's the default, basically. So same as Slack. Otherwise, typically things are lighter, but I don't care. So the thing is, I don't care about that. So it felt like, is this what developers are really interested in hearing in the keynote? That's the one thing that you pinpoint, apart from cross-platform. That was the first thing, of course. I was like, okay, this felt off.
I actually thought that particular announcement was more like a joke on the ongoing needness. At least, I took it a little bit like, let's play this meme joke that everything now has got a dark mode, and I think that one was a cool how I framed it at any rate.
Maybe.
But elaborate a little bit about on you're saying like the builders. You need something for them to be truly useful.
I really like the builders. I was having a discussion yesterday on the community booth Zoom call on the workflow builder, on BPT and the workflow builder, and BPT is an amazing underused tool from OutSystems. And one of the reasons I think that is because it's hard to get business people to actually use a development tool. It's scary. And the workflow builder solves that problem. It's easier to do. It's a lot more high level and more in line with what the business is expecting. And the one downside to that tool is that it's a one-way street. And that applies for all the builders. I understand why, but as a developer, that's the one thing that, and in particular for the workflow builder, actually, for the others, experience builder as well.
What do you mean with one way?
So once you come up with your prototype for the experience builder, or you come up with your workflow for the workflow builder, and you press the green button, again green, it's a one-way thing. It generates code, and that code, if you change that code, you cannot go back to the workflow builder to further enhance it. And the other way around too. So if you change from the workflow builder, you generate new code, you don't update existing code. So you're not able to iterate in the workflow builder, which would be amazing because workflows are never done right the first time, I'm pretty sure. The same goes for the experience, the interface experience. You know you're going to tweak it, and as soon as you start tweaking it, because you generate the code and you start tweaking it, you don't have the nice, easy way of seeing the full journey of a user in the experience builder, for instance. And that applies to all builders. That also applies to the scaffolding tools that we already have. Once it's generated, and it's ours, and we do whatever we want. So I understand they are accelerators, which is a nice shift from last year. Last year, they were geared at citizen developers. Now they're geared at developers. That was one of the key takeaways from the keynote. The word developer showed up so often throughout the entire keynote.
But was that not just smoke and mirrors? Because to be honest, when I played very little, full disclaimer, with Workflow Builder, and I mean, the expressiveness that you can have there, even if we park the one-way street, is quite limited.
I haven't tried it yet, so I cannot say. It feels just a nice.
I'm interested in what you are saying because I see it slightly differently. And my question for you is like, from the time that you actually used IntelliWarp,
good old name. I still much rather it than scaffolding, but there you go.
Okay, scaffolding. How many times did you actually do a scaffolding and didn't change it?
Depends on what kind of thing you're doing.
Come on, basically it's none. That's pretty much an accelerator. And the way that I see the builders, they are purely accelerators. And my opinion is that the builders are an important and valuable step forward toward no code. So the platform now is low code.
Did you notice? I actually made a note because for the first time I saw Paulo sort of say, and I think, let me just try to find out, because I think I actually wrote down the sentence he said. Combination of no and low code support. And I had never, to be honest, seen Paulo address OutSystems as no code as well.
But I would say that that's inevitable. The market it's the inevitable next step that the platform needs to do, because all of the other platforms will do exactly this step. all of them will tend to no code, which is, of course, ideally the ideal situation is someone needs, look, I need this application, and talks to the computer, and the computer builds the first version, and then he can actually change things, like saying, no, I don't want to, I want actually now a register screen, and I want to do an onboarding with the pictures that are in this folder, or find me good pictures for this or that. So I see it clearly, or my opinion is that clearly these builders are a step to move the platform, because the platform is quite big, but move different parts of the platform for one step up toward the objective of making the platform.
I totally agree with you. But last year they were geared at citizen developers. And this is amazing for citizen developers. And this year they were retargeted at developers, actual developers, and as accelerators instead of, sorry?
Professional developers. That was the term on the keynote.
Yeah, the name was mentioned, professional developers.
Professional developers. And they were targeted as accelerators, like you're saying, Ruben. I agree with you. As accelerators, they are great, I think. But last year they were announced as something else. The focus was on different.
I think that there's also quite a bit of marketing around it, as in citizen developer was a hype, and I'm not entirely sure how much of that hype is actually already kind of pretty much gone, as in not in OutSystems, but market-wise, as in yes, you can do many things without code, no code, but there are some, until the technology overall gets to a certain level where people can speak out what they actually want to do. I would say that that citizen developer is not completely like not. I don't want to be actually mean, as in saying that it's not a market or just a little bit of BS. But yes, it was. I was also happy, just to agree with you guys. I was also happy that there was so much mention, and I think that part of it we can actually give a kudos to also to Gonçalo Gaiolas, because he's the person that came all the way from the trenches of services. I worked with him in services, and all the way from the trenches of services now to be the VP of product. So.
Yeah. But I was recently, I got a little bit more knowledge of, for example, of Mendix. There was a great user group session done by a couple of OutSystems developers who formerly were very senior in Mendix. And if you guys look for it, it's available online. It's really, really good. And one thing that I keep hearing is OutSystems is a little bit higher code than Mendix. Mendix is lower code. And I think we might be doing the platform a disservice if we try to bring it down to the level of ever lower code platforms, because then you lose the strength that the differentiator that OutSystems sometimes has, which is you can tweak it more than the other ones. So it's a trade-off. So getting things up on screen, and I guess whenever I hear about Mendix message, it really is more about empowering business to do their own apps. OutSystems historically has always been empowering, developers to be a lot more productive and have more constructive conversations with business. But still, developers are there, right? And I don't know if there isn't something to be said for having this middle ground and being careful where you wage your bets, because if you wage your bets in making it too no codey rather than improving the middle to low code nature of yourself, you might become be running with a pack that's not in the same target as you are.
Why don't you just try to have it all?
Actually, saying on that line, a little bit like Armando was saying, is exactly what I like the platform, the fact that it's open and that actually you can extend it. And what I'm actually also hoping is that with these builders and that they are being constructed and so on, I'm pretty sure that many of the platform things have now to be open, now to have new APIs and so on. And I believe that with time, these things will be open. So for a long time, I've been working more and more is on the border of the platform.
Mhm.
And what I love is actually when there are new things that enable you to actually to build for the platform, as in not on top of the platform necessarily, but using the APIs of the platform and enabling you to do things that you could not do otherwise. Meaning, by doing this myself, I'm making the life of other people much easier. So imagine yourself being able to build a builder using these
Yep.
APIs to do
Mhm.
specific things and to do your no code for your end users.
I think that's what the builders are. To start, it's the no code portion of OutSystems low code platform, and I agree with you with the empowering other developers to create their own builders. I hope that it goes that way. That was one of the questions I had for Service Studio. I tried to ask it, and I got a private answer, which I'm not going to share here. But an idea that I would like to eventually see implemented would be, once you have that, you can have something like custom scaffolding.
Yeah, this
Provide your own templates. So merge the templates, the screen templates with scaffolding so that you can build your own scaffolding patterns. That
exactly.
I would find amazing if it's possible to do with the new Service Studio
Mhm.
at some point.
And you're actually going towards what I'm saying. I think, and to answer Armand, why not have it all? Well, because you don't have infinite time and infinite resource, so you need to wage your bets. I think obviously try to go broad is fine, but we're still talking about a company that's 1,200 people, so we're not talking about a ginormous Microsoft or something. So they need to select. And indeed, as George was saying, I would say that, for example, implementing some sort of scripting within the platform, namely, for example, for scaffoldings to be configurable by yourself, for the rules of matching names of variables to certain types to be configurable by yourself. I would say this would probably be an investment that would play to the hands of the professional developers that they have raised from the dead again, more so than something, unless they're gonna break this one-way line for the builders in some way, which is challenging. Then the investment that they're doing over there will yield to us.
So,
but
sorry to interrupt, because we have 8 minutes left. We still have to talk about the other thing that was announced, which was AppShield.
Yeah, we didn't touch
AppShield.
The elephant in the room.
Yeah,
it's a plugin.
It is.
Yes, and the power of it is actually quite interesting. I was already reading about it, like what it enables you to do, and it's really fantastic. But it was a bit of a surprise to me that it's paid separately.
Yep.
Do we have any idea what sort of values are we talking about?
No.
Because
there was a session on AppShield, but I managed to miss it. It was a live session, so it's not yet available. So I don't know. They mentioned it would be in the same vein of the SAP support, which I don't know how it's going to move forward with the integration builder. But okay. But it was interesting. I read a little bit more about the AppShield. I found there was one tidbit on the documentation that I found interesting, was that the AppShield plugin allows more control than what is actually available to OutSystems to use. I didn't understand that. So there's some event that is available for the AppShield plugin that is actually not mapped to an OutSystems event. I was like, so they build the AppShield thing and they don't allow access to all the features? This is odd. But otherwise, I don't know prices.
I missed that one.
I'm going to wait and see what it gives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was very high level, and at least if you had gone to the session, probably would know more. But from what was announced, it felt like it was let's do security. Let's give people security as an add-on. That was what it felt when it was announced. When I checked what it is, it's a little bit more. Let's give developers a little bit more safety in how and guaranteeing that their applications are not cloned by other people or copied, etc., or tampered with.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit different than what I
My
mentioned.
only thing regarding that is that, as far as I understood, and I haven't read much on the topic, is that we're talking about security. We're talking about something built by OutSystems. My only question is why is that not included by default?
Because I think it's a service.
Yeah, I was going to ask that because for example, in Alegria's presentation about AI, you always go to some of the backbone of some of the features, like inference in Service Studio of what the nodes are, etc., lies, for example, on top of AutoML, which is an external service. So I'm guessing some of these things do reach out to other systems that are paid. And now you could always ask, shouldn't OutSystems absorb that cost? But then that's a whole other discussion.
Well, if you think about the business model that Apple has, how they are making money nowadays is through all of the different types of subscriptions that they have. So you can imagine that this is also business-wise for OutSystems is more profitable because it's a small more add-on. And I'm not saying that there's no value, that there's no additional cost for OutSystems themselves, as in to enable or to provide this service. And I imagine that this service will be for free in a couple of years. But nevertheless, it's looking at how Apple is making money nowadays.
Look, I have no problem with that business model. My concern and question is, as far as I know, and honestly, I don't know much, I don't think Apple charges me anything else for security. Because my concern here is just because we're talking about security.
Yes, but in this case, you are also talking about very specific use case. In what kind of applications do you actually want this extra level of security?
Yeah,
Banking
they
applications,
mentioned
right?
Yeah, they mentioned
So,
this
for example.
explicitly.
Yeah,
So-
the security we're talking about is root detection, repackaging detection, code obfuscation, and injection protection, and this sort of thing, and screenshots, etc. So it's quite specific to certain kinds of applications. For others, it's kind of irrelevant. But it doesn't tackle other security concerns that OutSystems applications might still have. So it's
such as what?
We need to wrap up now.
exactly.
Oh, okay, exactly.
Fudging the contest in the beginning, right?
Need to wrap because before we go, we would like to ask. Well, so we have a few viewers. People like to suffer, yes. We have a few questions. We had a very interesting discussion regarding session content, expertise levels, and if we should have online events targeting newbies, if we should have a smaller or something like ODC for more advanced developers. But what we have here, we had here a question, and this is specifically for George. Ricardo is asking if you feel, or well, I'm just changing a bit the question. If you have more persons wanting to learn OutSystems because now they are at home.
So yeah, no, mixed answer there. So organizations right now are not really interested in training because training takes time from their employees, and now their employees are trying to take back to earn the money that they didn't earn in the beginning of the pandemic. So there, no. Individual developers, there's a lot of interest. For instance, Brazil, I've seen many people interested. The problem there is that a lot of them want training for free, and we don't do much training for free.
Because we have bills to pay, right?
Yeah, it happens. But we have some offers in Udemy, for instance, which are initial training cheap because Udemy fairly cheap, and people can always go online and to the OutSystems training there. So that part, I think you see a lot more people doing training because they can. The certifications offers were a good help there. Lots of people took the opportunity and managed to get certified. So that was a major play by OutSystems of offering certification to basically everyone in April. And a lot of people took advantage of that and just studied and managed to pass certification. That's how you have a lot more developers now.
Okay, so we also have, because we are really wrapping up, we also have Vera saying that she doesn't understand why we don't understand double negatives. And that's a very positive answer from me.
We need to have just one session about double negatives.
So
we
it's all
don't
engineers.
need to not have another session about double negatives.
Yes, that's a positive thing. Okay, and we also, well, we have the discussion. We also have Ricardo again saying that promoting a app is safe because AppShield is used, gives him the shills. Developers need to be responsible and not just trust an add-on. What are your thoughts on
Well,
that?
come on, that's the same thing as you need to do bytecode because you cannot trust any compiler. You need to do high code because you cannot trust low code.
Well, I see this as an insurance. Like, if it
I
goes bad, it was AppShield's fault.
But the thing is, the things that AppShield protects you of are not the same things that the developer needs to worry about in terms of protection usually. So the developer builds their application. From what I see of the initial documentation, builds their application, and what AppShield gives you is some guarantee that your application will not be tampered with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's a bit different of guaranteeing that your data is stored securely on the device.
Yeah, it's a builder add-on. It's a compiler add-on rather than,
Maybe for the next podcast, we can invite someone who actually understands about this to explain us and everyone.
That's true. Yeah, that would be a good idea.
We have an idea already, guys, right?
Yes.
Let's not give it away.
Yes, exactly, because
we need to watch this
we still
space.
need to sign the agreements and make sure we don't get
and promise our
banned.
firstborns. Yeah. Obviously, I already gone past the firstborn stage. Yeah, it's like would be the fourthborn, but I'm not doing it.
Okay, so I think it's time to wrap up because people are bored already.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, George, for your time and your willingness to join us. Hope you
don't get fired
too much.
Exactly, and that people won't ban you from anything, especially from NextStep after the awful criticism that you gave. So this will be the headline, #fake news. So thank you very much. Thank you very much to the co-hosts. Thank you to everyone who joined the conversation today. And we'll eventually see each other next time in 1 month or so.
Yeah, if Miguel doesn't go on vacations again.
Yes.
I don't think I will.
We'll never know. We'll never know.
If it depends on me, I will, but I don't think I can.
Perks of being a boss.
There you go.
Okay, so thank you and bye-bye, everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.